Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with Nile TV International. And here is the continuous coverage of the Iranian-American-Israeli war. Now we have a ceasefire, and it's the first day of the two-week ceasefire deal announced yesterday by U.S. President Donald Trump and accepted by the Iranians. And talks for negotiations, direct negotiations, are slated for Saturday in Islamabad, with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance to lead the American delegation, and reportedly the Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Ghalibaf to lead the Iranian delegation. Of course, there are reports about the partial closure of the Strait of Hormuz. We don't know what is exactly the state of this of the Hormuz Strait at the moment, and also, of course, a lot of conflicting views regarding whether Lebanon was or wasn't a part of the two-week ceasefire deal that supposedly, according to U.S. President Donald Trump, should lead to a historic deal, a permanent one, with the Iranians. With us now, live over the phone from Washington, D.C., is Dr. Nasser Fayed. And Dr. Fayed is a professor of international law. Dr. Fayed, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Fayed, can you hear me? Hello? Yes, hello. Do I have Dr. Nasser Fayed, the professor of international law, with me, speaking from Washington, D.C.? Hello? Okay. So we'll try to get Dr. Fayed with us on the line. A lot of important developments happening on this first day of the ceasefire deal. A lot of breaches. Israel hitting Lebanon very hard, killing hundreds of Palestinians, hundreds of Lebanese, and injuring over 1,000 others and attacking Beirut in a way that has not been seen since 1982. The Iranians say that, and the Pakistanis also, the main mediators, say that a ceasefire is meant to engulf Lebanon as well. But the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has said that Lebanon was not on the table in the ceasefire deal, and that the Iranians misunderstood the situation. And also, yesterday, Mr. Trump, receiving the 10 points that Iran had proposed to the Americans via the Pakistanis, had said that they constitute a very good basis for negotiations. But today we heard from the U.S. White House spokesperson that Mr. Trump had actually taken that paper, allegedly, that had the 10 points proposed by Iran, and threw it in the garbage. So a lot, again, of conflicting stories. We don't know who's saying the truth and who isn't. But okay, so supposedly we've got back with us Dr. Nasser Fayed, the professor of international law from Washington, D.C. Dr. Fayed.
Yes, I'm with you.
Yes, Dr. Fayed, thank you for joining us. Good afternoon. Sir.
My pleasure.
According to your information, who is telling the truth? I mean, was Lebanon a part of the ceasefire deal, or wasn't it? The Iranians and the Pakistani mediators are saying that it was. The Americans are saying it isn't.
Well, let's go back a little bit to the Israelis. During the 40 days of war with Iran and Hezbollah, the Israelis said it very clearly that even if there is a ceasefire achieved with the Iranians, we are not going to stop in Lebanon. President Trump backed Netanyahu with this point initially. So when this ceasefire agreement came in the last hour and a half, everybody tried sort of to declare victory, and they included Lebanon in this on the side of the Iranians. But President, first JC said it, and then President Trump this morning made it very clear that when they had this agreement and when they agreed about the 10 points as a starting point for the negotiation, Lebanon was not included in this deal.
Okay.
So
yes,
more than one source in the United States, including the president and the vice president and the speaker of the White House, stated very clearly that we did not agree to a ceasefire, including Lebanon in it.
All right.
So I think only the Iranians are understanding it this way.
And the Pakistanis as well. The Pakistani ambassador in Washington has said that Lebanon was part of the ceasefire deal. The main mediator, Pakistan.
That's right. Well, what we think here, that the wish of the Pakistani prime minister is to include Lebanon in it, but they didn't get any confirmation from the United States that they will agree on it. And actually, some sources are saying that there were sort of like two papers. The Iranians were understanding one paper with the Americans for the negotiation with the Americans, but at the same time, they were talking to their people about some points that are not correctly interpreted in the English.
Okay, the Persian document and the English language document. Yes, we understand. Now about the 10 points, Dr. Fayed. You just said that the U.S. has made it clear that it wasn't part. Lebanon wasn't part of the ceasefire deal in the 10-point plan proposed by Iran via Pakistan to the Americans. Now, there's something very confusing here. Please clear it up for us. Yesterday, the U.S. President, when he said that he was honored as the President of the United States to report the news of the ceasefire, he also talked about the 10-point plan proposed by Iran and said there were good bases for negotiations. But we heard Caroline Leavitt, the White House spokesperson, saying that Mr. Trump actually tore this paper apart and threw it in the garbage. So, who should we believe, Mr. Trump or Mrs. Leavitt?
Well, actually, I think both have truth to them, because now the understanding is there was an initial 10-point paper offered by the Iranians, and this one was not accepted by President Trump. And this is what the White House spokesman was referring to. And then after that, in the last hour, and with the negotiation with the help of the Pakistani Prime Minister and the Chinese actually too, apparently there was another 10-point paper advanced, and this is what President Trump agreed to have as a starting point for negotiations. So there is the 10 points that they didn't agree for, and there is another one that was, I think, an amended one. That's why I think this is where the confusion is. But in any way, nobody knows exactly about the 10 points that they are talking about now. They keep it in secret, and J.C. Vance is going to arrive to Islamabad between Friday and Saturday, and they're going to start negotiations there. And I think with time we're going to start, learning more and more about those real points that they are trying to tackle here to maybe possibly reach a more permanent ceasefire and an agreement.
Okay, so you're a professor of international law. So might I ask you, what does international law say about striking of power plants, oil stations, civilian infrastructure, from the point of view of international law? We understand that even within the United States itself, some Democrats and a lot of media personnel, I don't know if some Republicans as well, but by the way, some Republicans had criticized the U.S. president in his talk about, washing away the Persian Empire, or a whole civilization will die tonight. These were his exact words. But about the targeting of civilian infrastructure, bridges and you name it. Does it? Some Democrats said that it breaches international law and could constitute a war crime. So may I know from you, the professor of international law, what do you think?
Well, I mean, there are certain things that are vital to the life of people, like water, for example. There is no doubt about it. In the international law, there are things that are a gray area because they are used for humans, and at the same time, they may be used for military operations, like power plants, like bridges, because as you know, bridges are very vital for military operations too. So it is a gray area, and it depends on the situation, and it's case-by-case analysis. You cannot, apply the entire international law to say that this is a war crime or this is not a war crime. And now, if this is used because to, let's say, to attack bridges or to attack power plants because the military is using it, this is obviously goes into the laws of war, and it is permitted to an extent. But when the intent to do it, and when it is obvious that it's affected already the life of people, starving them, or just like keeping them away from receiving food, receiving shelter, receiving water.
Yeah,
could be construed as a crime of war.
Yes, just like
a war crime.
Yes, just like the Israeli war crime suspect, Israeli Prime Minister was doing in Gaza, in the genocide war in Gaza. Exactly that.
Absolutely, this is already goes beyond any military operation to affect the life of people there, and this is no doubt. It is a clear example of a war crime.
Yes, Dr. Fayed. What do you think of the Israeli practice in Lebanon today? It was one of those Gaza days, the Gaza genocide days, killing hundreds of Lebanese and injuring thousands, and hitting Beirut in a way that hasn't been seen since the invasion of 1982. And how does this risk? And how does this risk shaking the ceasefire deal up? I mean, how does it risk, getting things to break down?
This is a very important question, or I would say those are very important questions, because there are two different things here. First, if I want to start with the last one, about whether this will shake the temporary ceasefire now between Iran and the United States. I think that the Iranians now do not have the luxury in this moment specifically to pick up another fight, and that's why we saw the last 2 days that as soon as this ceasefire was achieved, Hezbollah stopped sending
the rockets,
missiles,
the missiles,
rockets to Israel, and we want to see how that's going to happen. But let's go back and acknowledge that Hezbollah is the power, and unfortunately, up until now, the government of Lebanon had a lot of changes, from the president to prime minister to everybody, had the opportunity maybe to hit a little bit harder, and at least in the areas that are not controlled by Hezbollah, and specifically Beirut, but they failed to do that. And then we see today that the Israelis bombed Beirut. I'll give you an example. When the southern suburb of Beirut was hit, where the headquarters of Hezbollah, the Hezbollah leaders start going to Beirut and hiding there, and they deactivated the cameras there. What should have happened, the government should have sent the army there, should have reinstalled the cameras, could have, take control of the city, but they failed to do that. Now, the Lebanese government has the international support, has the majority of the Lebanese support to take over, to send the army to everywhere and have the Lebanese army, the only army that controls Lebanon and no weapons in the hands of anybody, including Hezbollah, except the army. But up until now, they've been playing politics. They've been, afraid of a civil war or something. But there is something worse than a civil war happening in Lebanon now. So I think the government needs to take more charge. They have to use that international momentum, if it's not too late, and take charge and take control of these areas that they can take control of, at least now.
Okay, we understand.
Unfortunately.
Yes, we understand, Dr. Fayed. But you would agree, I guess, that this is not an excuse for a neighboring state, which is perceived by many here in this region, many, that it is the number one source of terror and the number one source of evil and the number one source of occupation and the number one source of genocide. I'm speaking about Israel, of course, not Iran. It's not an excuse, I guess you would agree, for killing a lot of civilians and destroying infrastructure in a country, is it?
Absolutely, and I'm in no way here I'm trying to justify the evil acts of Israel. What I'm trying to say that we know Israel and we know what is its agenda, but it is very sad to continue giving them the excuses to do what they are doing now.
The pretext,
and
yes.
Yes, we know that they have the support, the full support of President Trump, the full support of the administration, our administration here, but there were lots of opportunities that the government of Lebanon could have seized, and Lebanon could have been in a different position now. One of them, very important, those 6 missiles that Hezbollah sent to Israel when this Iranian-American-Israeli war started. Lebanon is not in the position of picking a fight. Hezbollah shouldn't have picked a fight without the support of the Lebanese and the government of Lebanon. And here's the result. They gave the excuse to Israel to do what they did and what they continue to do now.
Okay.
So this needs to stop. That's the point.
Dr. Fayed, we're getting reports that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is preparing a war powers vote on Iran next week. And Mr. Schumer, these are his exact words, this is one of the very worst military and foreign policy actions by a U.S. president in the history of the U.S. of A. What do you think will happen in that war powers vote on Iran next week? How crucial is it? How important is it?
Well, you said it. He's the minority leader. He's not the majority leader. This is not the first vote ever since President Trump, a month and a half ago, tried to go into this bizarre war. But Mr. Schumer, Senator Schumer, with all respect, I don't think he's going to get enough votes to do anything in here because the reality of the Senate now and the House, that the majority is in the hands of the Republicans. Many Republicans are not fans of what's happening now, but this is their party, and then, in our democracy here, the president is the Republican. They have to stick to the president.
Sorry for interrupting you, dear sir, but because I have a lot of questions, really. Thank you for your time. So that means that you don't believe that the Article 25 will be activated, because we heard, I believe it was Yasmin Ansari, if I'm not mistaken, and she's a senator from Iranian origin, and her family had fled the regime in the practices of the regime in Iran to go to the United States, and now she's a U.S. senator, and she's talking about Article 25 to be applied against President Trump. And by the way, she an opponent of the Iranian regime, totally rejected those statements about getting Iran back to the Stone Age and a civilization is going to die tonight. And no one can kill civilizations, I guess.
Invoking the 25th Amendment today and impeach the president, this is not going to happen, and there is no enough vote for the Democrats. And yes, there are conversations like this. Yes, there are Republicans that are not happy with what President Trump is doing now, especially in this war that has been costing us a lot. And actually, we didn't win, and I don't think we are going to win the way it's been happening. However, they will never vote to impeach President Trump. Yeah. So the conversation about it are conversations related to the midterm elections, not more than that. And we do know that the midterm elections now looming over the Republicans, and they are not in the best position today.
Understood, Dr. Fayed. And when do you think the minority will become a majority? Do you think that this war and the results of this war will make come November time that the minority will be the majority and vice versa, and thus amendment and Article 25 and other things can pass?
Well, the conversation I don't think will go as far as the 25th Amendment, but I can tell you since November of last year, we've seen some momentum for the Democratic Party. They won several
the New York
governors,
of course, Mamdani.
Now
Mamdani created an earthquake, I guess. Mamdani, the affordability, the issue of affordability, which is now even more, America is more unaffordable, I guess, now, with gasoline prices in some states at $5 a gallon. Yeah.
President Trump now is lowest.
Yes.
I would say
rate of approval,
yes. Now, and is as low as the lowest rate of former President Biden. So a lot of people are frustrated with the inflation, with the economy, with the health policies, the more and more expensive. With the war of Iran now, with the gas is $5 per gallon at the gas station, all that is affecting the Americans' check.
So we want a prediction.
That's why this is putting too much pressure on the Republicans.
We want a prediction from you, Dr. Fayed. A prediction. Do you think Democrats can get both houses of Congress in November?
I think the Senate, it could be challenging, but it is possible. But I predict that they will definitely regain the majority in the House. This is probably is going to happen, but in terms of the Senate, if you know how the election happened here, is that only 1/3 of the seats are up for election, and it depends on where those 20 seats or so. It depends. If they are in Republican states, it could be hard. If the majority of them or few of them up in the Democratic, or in the gray areas, maybe they will seize it. We will see, but it's going to be very tight, and probably one or the other is going to win them by 1 or 2 seats maximum in terms of the Senate.
You see, that's a prediction already. Dr. Fayed, you are an Egyptian American, correct?
I'm Lebanese American, actually.
Okay. Dr. Fayed, I wonder, what do you think of the Egyptian diplomacy and Egypt's role as a mediator, as one that had called from day one for a de-escalation of violence, for a return to the diplomatic path, for halting the war, for not targeting any civilian infrastructure, for not damaging the international economy, for opening up straits, condemning, of course, also the Iranian attacks against the Arab Gulf countries, and condemning, of course, the Israeli targeting of Lebanon. What do you think of Egypt's diplomatic efforts and its role as a cornerstone of stability in this region?
Well, this is not the first time where the Egyptian diplomacy works tirelessly to help in achieving peace in the region. And this time it wasn't an exception. Part of what we got here now is a hard work of the Egyptian diplomacy behind the scene or in tango with the Pakistani Prime Minister and the other people who are playing very positive role here. In Lebanon specifically, recently in the last 10 days, the head of the intelligence of Egypt went and tried to convince Hezbollah to strike a deal, and I think behind the scenes that conversation is continuing there.
Yes,
and I think
and
if
of course,
anybody can play this role will be the Egyptian diplomacy in the problem now, in the very, very complicated problem between Lebanon and Israel.
Yes, and of course Foreign Minister Abdul Ati was the highest Arab official to visit Lebanon during this war and aggression by Israel, and meet with Presidents Aoun, Salam and Birri. Turkey of course also Turkey of course played a key role as well in the mediation efforts. Now, Dr. Fayed, how challenging do you think upholding the ceasefire will be, and how key will navigation in the Hormuz Strait be? We're hearing from the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, that they could close the strait at any given time. They're playing with it, and we've heard warnings from Mr. Vance, the Vice President of the U.S., that it's saying basically it's up to the Iranians. I mean, if they mess up with the Strait of Hormuz, then everything is still on the table. If they make true to their promise in opening up navigation, then things will proceed. So I wonder how challenging you think is upholding the ceasefire.
Look, the Iranians proved in the last at least 10 years or more in the negotiation that they are very smart and tough and pragmatic negotiation. It's not going to be easy, and I tell you that the Iranians have the opportunity to drag negotiations very, 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 very long time. And I don't think it's going to be very easy because the nuclear program for the Iranians is a red flag. They are not going to give it up, and they are going to dance around it. They are going to prolong negotiations in the future. They got to through some ideas. They got to through promising things like that happened in the past. And I think President Trump underestimated and still underestimating the Iranians in this regard. I think this is that's why they may get some agreement at this time to maybe offer President Trump a safe landing, what he needs, because he went too high up on this tree, and somebody needs to get him down this tree somehow. I think that they are going to give him a safe landing. They are going to tell their people, like, we did not get defeated. We won also there. Everybody's going to take some. It may give some longer ceasefire maybe because we have the midterm election. But I think it's not going to be the end of it. The regime is still strong. The regime is not going to give up their nuclear weapon, even if they agree to something close to that. In the negotiations in the future, many things can change, or they will not comply with it. What happened in the past, so it's not going to be easy. So we will see what's going to happen in Islamabad.
Yeah. So you think, Dr. Fayed, that the cat and mouse game will continue, but without major escalation, correct? Did I sum it up?
Well, it depends how much Mr. Netanyahu is going to be able to convince President Trump to continue this war, like he convinced him to start it without having a backup plan.
Yes.
So we'll see.
By the way, we pray for the safety of everyone in Lebanon. Dear Lebanon.
Of course, thank you. We do.
Dear Lebanon. Beloved Lebanon, thank you very much, Dr. Nasser Fayed, the professor of international law, the Lebanese-American professor of international law, speaking to us from Washington, D.C. That's all we have for now. In about 5 minutes, we'll be back with Panorama News. Please don't go away.